Call to order the November 8th, 2021 Parks, Recreation, and Natural Resource Commission meeting. Roll call.
Taken.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to welcome our new commission member, Cole Williams, over on our right. Cole, if you just give us a little bit about your background and what's your favorite park?
Hello, everyone. My name is Cole. First meeting. Hello, everyone. My name is Cole Williams. I have a background in research at the University of Minnesota in plant pathology. I also have a master's degree in writing. I am serving on the board of the South Washington Watershed District currently as well. And my favorite, hi Jack, my favorite place to visit is the paddle show program and the river. I'm an avid kayaker and rower, so always on the water, including the last 2 days.
All right, well, welcome.
Thank you.
Approval of the agenda. Everybody get a chance to review. Any comments? If none, do I have a motion to accept? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the minutes of the September 13th, 2021 meeting. Any comments? Do I have a motion to accept?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Open forum. At this time, we'd like to point out, if you have an item to discuss that's already on the agenda, just for example, the Mississippi Dunes issue, wait until we come to that, and then you'll have plenty of time to speak. So is there anybody else for open forum? Any other topic? Please step.
Well, there's no agenda. I don't know what's on it.
Okay. The Mississippi Dunes Park Master Plan will be the first item up after open forum and presentations, which I don't think we have any. So it's minutes away if you want to wait. So any other people here for any other item for open forum? If not, we'll move on to presentations.
None tonight.
Moving on to action items. A, Mississippi Dunes Park Master Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. So we're talking about the Mississippi Dunes Master Plan tonight. Obviously, the commission has seen this from its inception, really. It started with the Mississippi River Access Strategy Report, and now it's evolved to the Mississippi Dunes Master Plan. And the intent for tonight is to get any final feedback from the commission before sending on to the city council for approval, or for review and final approval as well. So I want to start by just talking a little bit about the background. As I mentioned, back in 2020, the city council had given a directive to staff that Mississippi River access was one of their top priorities in their strategic plan. So staff developed the Mississippi River Access Strategy Report, and Mississippi Dunes was identified as the top property in that report. I think we analyzed 13 or 14 properties, and Mississippi Dunes ranked at the top for a myriad of reasons, but availability, obviously access to the water, different opportunities for recreational experiences there, and for habitat preservation are some of the examples of why that ranked at the top. So because that ranked at the top, we ended up talking with the city council and the Parks and Recreation Commission, got a proposal to master plan that park, which is a little bit different than most of our master planning processes. Usually, we don't master plan for a park until we know we have access, or we have ownership, we will have ownership of that land very soon. So this process actually started before that because we knew that this was a piece of property that was changing from a golf course to something else. We don't know what, we didn't or don't know what it is at this time, but we knew it was changing and we needed to get ahead of it with a master plan to make sure we protected the most important assets of that land that the city saw fit. So in March 8th, 2001, the Parks, Recreation, Natural Resource Commission recommended the hiring of ISG to consult on the development of that Mississippi Dunes Master Plan. And then in May of 21, they reviewed the Mississippi Dunes Draft Master Plan and identified park space and provided recommendations to the plan. Council, on May 19th, Council reviewed Mississippi Dunes Draft Master Plan and gave direction on park acreage, which was at 40 acres at that time, and provided other recommendations to the recreational amenities of the plan. So they kind of prioritized what were the things that needed to stay on the plan and what are the things that could go. September 24th through October 15th, I'm sorry, I skipped over. August 9th, 2021, the Parks, Recreation, and Natural Resources Commission reviewed the master plan and then also took a guided walking tour of the site. In September, the Parks and Recreation Commission once again reviewed the plan, received updates regarding the city's plans for public engagement, and then also staff provided the response to those questions and concerns heard from the public at previous meetings. And then from September 24th through October 15th was the Mississippi Dunes Online Public Engagement Format Program. So it was a combination of online public engagement opportunities, so people saw the master plan in its entirety on the website, and then they were able to plug their comments in as they saw fit. And then we also did an open house on, I can't remember the exact date, but early October, we did an open house where people were invited to speak as well. Obviously, throughout that time too, there was phone calls and emails and letters and other correspondence received too that we've included, and all those reports are in your were in your packet. So you can see all the responses of that public engagement process. October 7th, 2021, the Mississippi Dunes October 27th, 2021 was the Mississippi Dunes Master Plan Open House. And then on October 11th, the Planning Commission also took a guided walking tour of this plan of the Mississippi Dunes property as well. And then on November 3rd, last Wednesday, the council held a workshop and provided additional direction on the master plan. I'll talk a little bit about a couple of changes that happened there. So I just want to start by talking about historical, give you some context for the land use over time. If you look at the property in 1937, most of this property was agricultural, stayed that way through late 1980s, early 1990s, when the entire site was graded for a golf course. But what you'll notice is on the south end of the property, along the river shoreline, which really before the Hastings Dam was built, there wasn't a lot of water back here, but this part of the south part of the site is really the part that hasn't changed a whole lot. Everything north of that has been graded or farmed or whatever else in previous years. So really the council and staff have identified the top priority as that south portion of the land. Now that's not to be said that something else can't be done with any other parts of the property, but that's the part that really sticks out as needing preservation as the top priority. There's been some talk about the history of the home. I'm not going to talk a lot about that because I don't have the knowledge of the home that's there. But the city has hired an independent architectural professional to review the historical nature of the house and see if there's pieces of that need to be protected in any way, shape, or form. That process is still happening as we speak. It's important to note the Washington County Southwest Arterial Study. The county has been planning for more activity on the island, whether that's the regional park that's there, whether that's homes, whatever it might be. But this is a process that's been happening for a couple of years, and they've had they analyzed multiple road alignment options there and landed on the one that kind of follows the current roadway across the bridge and onto the island. So this is something that both the city, the county have been anticipating development in the future on the island. It's important to note that the Mississippi Dunes isn't the only opportunity. I know the commission has seen the Mississippi River Access Strategy Report and all the different opportunities we've had for public access there, but the county's got a lot of county land that they're purchasing a lot of land for a future regional park. So at some point, and we're trying to encourage them to move up their master planning process so that they can start to plan for this, so that we're not doubling up on the recreational planning for all the different sites on the property, but they're planning for a regional park, so we want to make sure that we're complementing and not competing with whatever recreational opportunities they're doing at the regional park in the future. But right now they don't have a master plan for that site, so we're trying to encourage them to increase when they take on that master planning process. So there's land here, there's land also to the south and to the east, and then also the future. In the Mississippi River Access Strategy Report, you'll notice there was at the old mining site that the city's pinpointed that as a spot where there should be future public park options as well, especially because of the connection to the main channel of the Mississippi River. Talking about the existing site, when we're talking about challenges, there are railroad tracks there, so that's challenges for anything from housing development to park connections as well. The river navigation, there are certainly challenges. We've talked about that with the commission on many different levels of the depth of the waters, typically 1.5 to 3 feet deep through that back channel. There are some areas that get a little bit deeper so you can navigate, but we still need to do a lot more research in terms of what we know about that river and what kind of water vessels could get through there. There's an all-way stop bridge going both ways that narrows up and has an odd turn to it, so for traffic-wise, there's some challenges there. We know about the contamination of the groundwater. It is in a major flight path for the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, and then we talked about the potential of the historical house before. There's been comments about the flood zone and how flooding would affect this area. I'm not a hydrologist or engineer, but what they tell me is the 100-year flood elevation is at 697, and really what that means is you're not going to see any flooding, any major flooding along this shoreline, other than up into this back area, which is already a wetland. So most of the housing or anything else or any park development would be above that elevation. Comprehensive plan shows this as a transitional area, transitional use area. So that requires additional planning efforts and a master planning process. So we started the park master planning process first, and I think it's important to know that. Somewhere down the line, there was a new owner of the property, and there was an expressed desire for potentially putting houses on this site. And then at that point, the rezoning and the development master planning kind of came together with our park open space and trails master plan. So we started with one vision of a master plan, and we had to kind of pivot and merge them and work on both ends of that plan. So that's why you see housing part of it and the park open space and trail master plan. There is on the plan, you'll see just a vague description of low-density homes, medium-density homes. I think the commission knows what those might look like, but typically single-family homes versus, townhomes or things of that nature for medium density. But the commission here is tonight to talk about the park master plan. So the master plan proposes low and medium density residential. Future county road realignment is listed on there. We talk about creating buffers between the railroad and between the homes and the park, and then also creating diverse neighborhoods. When we get to the Parks and Trails Master Plan, we wanted to make sure we utilize the existing vehicular roadway corridor for future development and park access. We tried really hard to maintain any native plant communities, and even part of that is the DNR SNA. There's 12 acres there. We worked with the SNA and asked them specifically what acreage they thought was the most important pieces to protect, and that was the 12 acres that they've already been preserving and protecting for many years when it was a golf course. So they wanted to make sure they kept that as a part of their SNA, the Gray Cloud Dunes SNA. Use the elevation changes and existing grades throughout the site to take advantage of the view sheds of the river. We want to make sure we provided amenities and recreational activities to encourage people of all abilities to engage with the river and nature. So what's different between this and a native habitat, just a purely native habitat site like the Gray Cloud Dunes, is we want to have some paved trails, some rock trails, perhaps some mowed trails, but we want to have people of all ages and abilities to be able to get to the river. And we see that this park is that opportunity. So we have parking, we have ADA accessible trails and things of that nature. So identify interpretive and educational opportunities to highlight the natural resources and any cultural history of the land. There would obviously be a lot of that, interpretive signage, and protecting of habitat. And then provide enhanced natural landscape to create additional riverfront habitat, and then utilize the site as an opportunity to connect to other surrounding recreational areas and water trails. The water trail is important to note because this isn't going to be the only park on the river. And we want to make sure that this is one of the destinations and it complements, as I mentioned before, the other park sites along the river. So we have a really unique opportunity to create a nice water trail here where someone can launch a kayak or a canoe here and visit multiple sites along the river in a short period of time and have different experiences along the way. The plan has changed. I think when we first brought this to commission, there was about 20 acres of public park property that was reviewed. The council gave direction, as I mentioned earlier, about it needs to be 40. We're actually at 45 right now. The park The focus hasn't changed. We still want that primary goal is to get the land along the river. The recreational amenities have been whittled down to what the council and the commission both have expressed as the most interesting features for the park and best opportunities for recreational opportunities. And then the trail designs have modified over time as well as terms of natural versus paved. We are looking at potential partnerships for land acquisition from the DNR. Also, obviously, we talked about the scientific and natural area, trying to facilitate that conversation with the landowner to make sure that that habitat is preserved and brought into the SNA. And then obviously, there's lots of grant opportunities out there for habitat protection and restoration. We also are looking to partner with Washington County on land acquisition, and then also, like I mentioned, the complementary recreational services with whatever regional park plan that they develop, hopefully with our guidance as well. And then the South Washington Watershed District, we've been looking to them. They've always been a good partner with enhanced stormwater protection plan and educational interpretive opportunities. And that's not the end of the list, but those are some of the key partners that we would see in this project. We talked about the master plan public engagement process. All that correspondence was in your packet, so I won't go through that anymore. One of the things that to note is that there will be an environmental assessment worksheet. It's mandatory per state law. Additional assessments and early coordination with state agencies completed. So they will go through that historical, and they'll go through historical environmental site assessments, do a traffic impact study, wetland delineation, and geotechnical survey. They'll review all the documents with the Environmental Quality Board. And then the next step is to approve and submit documentation to the Environmental Quality Board distribution list, which initiates a 30-day public comment period for agencies and the public to review and provide comment to. So we're in the early part of that process. And then the Environmental Quality Board will distribution following the November 17th City Council approval, which initiates that 30-day public and agency comment period. So the next steps to the plan would be the Parks Commission master plan review tonight and give guidance for the City Council tonight. City Council would receive the EAW as I just discussed for the EQB distribution on November 17th. Planning Commission would review the master plan on November 22nd. And then the City Council master plan final review would be on December 1st. So pulling up the plan, I just wanted to talk about a couple of the changes on the plan from the last time you saw it. This parcel to the north has been included on the plan now. It provides a nice buffer to the neighbors to the north here, the north and the west, and also a buffer to that park access and allows us to straighten that road out a little bit more. We're still working with the landowner on what exactly gets protected down here, but we're trying to protect more of this tree stand down here. Those are the major changes to the park plan from the last time you had saw it. So at this point, I guess I'll turn it over to the chair and look for feedback.
Well, I just have one quick question on the map you just showed, the last one I had, as far as the entry point to the park. The last one I pulled from I think the Council Commission had a road going through a residential area with houses on both sides. Now, is this indicating that that has changed?
So there'll be opportunities to access the site from two different areas, but we want to make sure that because we do plan for it to be a community use type park where it's going to be beyond just the neighborhood, we want to make sure there's a direct access from 103rd Street. So people can access it from both sides, but we would see the neighborhood accessing through this site here, and the public access would most likely be coming through this way to ease congestion through there. So you're right, that is a change to the original.
That was just one thing I was going to suggest, just based upon all the input we have from the citizens' input.
About, what was the recommendation?
Just to make sure the entry point, one of the main entry points, does not go through a residential area, at least on both sides.
Yes.
Now, as far as our suggestions from the September 13th meeting, there was changes made, I noted, parking expansion was done, something on the play structure to keep it more natural theme elements, more mowed natural trails, that was all added on since our last meeting. There's supposed to be a study of the river channel to ensure that boating and fishing is feasible. Was that completed or is going to be completed?
No, it will be. I
Okay.
haven't had a chance to, I've talked to hydrologists, the watershed district, the DNR, and I haven't had any luck yet. So I'm actually gonna go out there with someone who has a John boat. He's gonna take me out there with a sonar. We're actually, at least get something, but I'm gonna continue to try to find, some more documentation on what that channel is, what that channel was, and what it can be. And also finding out if dredging is even an option. I don't know if that's something the city would entertain, or the DNR, or the Corps of Engineers or not, but just seeing what all the options are. Because we want to make sure before we build anything with a boat ramp, we know what kind of vessels we want launching out of there.
All right, thanks, Zach. I'll pass on. Does anybody in the commission want to make any statements before we open up to open forum, or do we want to go to open forum? All right, let's go to open forum. Whenever you come up to speak, please say your name, your address, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes or so.
Before we move forward, I'm trying to understand, what are we trying to accomplish tonight? Is this to help you understand whether or not you recommend to the city council that they move forward? Is that what we're doing?
We have a draft plan. The commission at this time has to decide if we want to say it's our final submission to the council. So that's what we're weighing here tonight. So do we have a list, Zach, of speakers, or is it first come, first serve? So the open forum is open if somebody wishes to step up.
I know we have a lot of people that want to speak tonight, so I'll try and be brief. My
Yeah,
name is
when
Jennifer Nedry. I reside at 7764 Jasmine Avenue South in Cottage Grove. Some of this may be a repeat, I just think it's worth saying again. I said this at the council meeting on the 3rd, that I think we would all agree that the recent election results showed that the citizens want their tax dollars spent wisely, and for all of the community to enjoy a park like this year-round. There are organizations that want to partner with the city, and I think that the Mississippi Dunes Park could generate income for the city. Doing a quick search right before I came to the meeting, because I often relate this to Lebanon Hills, where I go frequently, travel outside of Cottage Grove to go to a park like this. I saw that there's about 66,000 residents in Egan as of 2019, and Lebanon Hills, according to twincities.com, draws about 500,000 visitors to it. The Met Council in 2017, their demand forecast for the Ravine Park said that the growth between 2015 and 2040 will be about 79,000. And right from the Met Council report, this growth will increase demand to near-home outdoor recreation, which I think the Mississippi Dunes project brings to us. And what I asked the council and everyone that was present at the other meeting was to just think for a few minutes about what comes to mind when you hear certain cities in the surrounding areas. So when you think of Egan, you think of Lebanon Hills and the beautiful parks there. When you think of Lanesboro, you think of outdoor biking and the business that it brings to that city. Red Wing has beautiful bluffs. Wabasha has the Eagle Center. These are all natural locations that bring tourism and bring business to the city. And even though our neighbors to the south of us, like Newport and St. Paul Park, I don't think of something immediately that connects me to the natural areas of those cities in the same way that I think the Mississippi Dunes project could connect us to that natural area. And when you think of Woodbury, I think most people think of shops and homes, and when I mentioned this to someone, they said, and traffic. So I would love to see something like the Mississippi Dunes project with a bigger footprint for the natural area than even the 40 acres that we're talking about now. I just think it's a once-in-a-generation opportunity to really put Cottage Grove on the map. When people think of Cottage Grove, they will think of the Mississippi Dunes project. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, I'm Jean Nyman, and I live at 6340 Lamar Avenue South in Cottage Grove. Thanks for letting me speak. This property that we're talking about is a real treasure, and I think we have a responsibility as stewards of the land to preserve this rare site. The sand dune prairie habitat is unique and can never be replaced. So I oppose the rezoning of this property and allowing development. That's a little extreme. I think best case scenario would be to let the nature continue to reclaim this site and allow native habitat to flourish, limiting man's access to the area. Next best would be to take this current plan with their 260 lots and cut it way back, making more parkland. This is no place to cram in a lot of housing. We've got lots of cornfields within the city limits that we can make housing. And the worst case scenario right now is what we have here. I'm particularly concerned about the loss of the sand dune habitat, the 500 plus vehicles that would be in and out of this area daily just with this housing developments that's there. And then the hazard of the road underpass at Bailey's Nursery, 103rd. Control of the water runoff, I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with how we're gonna get rid of all the water, plus having all those houses and people adding all the chemicals and fertilizer and bug sprays and everything else that they do on their home. So I'm concerned about the lack of information also regarding the developer's plan for that northeast corner. And I think we should include the impact of that on this site when we're deciding what to do. Now I'm really concerned that this opportunity for this property could slip through our fingers, and it's vital that we take more time, and I'm glad that things have been extended for an evaluation. I understand that the land was purchased with the hope that City of Cottage Grove would rezone it so a profit could be made, and there is nothing wrong with making a profit, but I'm sorry, this land should not just be fully developed. I don't think we should rezone it to be as developed as this is right here. So help preserve this wonderful piece of land for our generation and many generations to come, because you'll never get it back. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hate to follow that act. My name's Bonnie Matter. I live at 6649 Inskip Avenue.
Microphone, please, we can't hear.
Okay, thank you for letting me know that. I didn't know that. Can you hear me? Thank you. My name is Bonnie Matter. I live at 6649 Inskip Avenue South in Cottage Grove, Minnesota. I want to say thank you very much, because I would not want to be in your shoes. And thank you for this opportunity to let me share with you how I feel about this and what I think is the best way to move forward. I was born in southeastern Minnesota. It's the Driftless area, and we have the Mississippi River, and we have the bluffs. And to me, that was just what nature was all about. I mean, I lived on the river. I went fishing, I went rowboating, lily pads, lots of wildlife, tundra swans. And when I came up here, it was a totally different experience, because it was like the river was hidden, okay? It was always behind some type of an industrial plant or something you couldn't really get to. You couldn't drive by it. So when I came to Cottage Grove, I mean, I know it's kind of a secret down there, and that was fine with me. It's beautiful. It's a real treasure. My comments said that I did not want any development there. I still feel that way. I'd like it wild. I like it to be a wildlife refuge, or I would like it to be a state park, something like that. And the word park even bothers me, because I don't want to see it developed with concrete and asphalt and swing sets. I want children to be able to go there and to experience the natural world, what it's really, really like. So first of all, I guess option number one would be no development at all. Let it continue the way it is and let's try to do something with that. Option number two would be a minimum of an additional 80 acres that could be added on to what's being provided, and that any area that has a river view be designated as public, okay? Public access, public. Everybody gets to participate in that, see that, be by it. So, let's see what else is on my note. Oh, yeah, and this is important. I feel at this time, everything okay? Okay. At this time, I don't feel that really the commission can even move forward with making a recommendation on this. And I say that because the Mississippi River Corridor Critical Area Plan is really not up to date. So I think you should be able to see that plan up to date. Everything okay? I guess I'm over my three.
You're getting around 3 minutes.
I'm
If you could
sorry. Oh,
No,
I'm
just
sorry.
summarize and kind of wrap
Okay.
up. Take your
And
time.
then the second piece that I think you need in order to move forward is a environmental assessment worksheet, you know, one that's completed that you can actually look at and see, well, what did the public say? So, oh, and then the other thing I think you need really is you need a map that shows how this is going to fit with the new industrial complex. Okay, the North Point Cottage Grove Logistics Center and 103rd and 105th Street. I think you need to see those things. So that's what I have. And thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Colleen O'Connor Toberman with Friends of the Mississippi River. It's nice to see you again. FMR has a longer comment letter that Whitney's passing out, but I'll summarize it very briefly. You know FMR's thoughts on the master plan. We firmly believe that Cottage Grove doesn't have to settle for a plan that includes so little public benefit on such a rare site. The city has full planning and zoning authority here to direct a different future for this property. And the city has a legal right to purchase this property at a fair appraised value. Funding partners exist to help facilitate this purchase, including those that can provide gap funding while other sources are being assembled. However, instead, it seems like the city has chosen to hang its hat on some distant goal of adding parkland on Gray Cloud Island someday. We understand that this may be decades away. Well, we certainly hope to see that park happen. It could be many, many years before mining ends, and then the site has to be cleaned up. That cleanup will be expensive. There will be the same debates about parkland versus housing, a public versus private benefit of redevelopment. And Gray Cloud Island is an industrial mine, whereas Mississippi Dunes could be restored with a relatively light touch. You don't need to wait decades for Cottage Grove to get a beautiful riverfront park. You could have it now here. So I came with a question today. Who are you planning this place for? Are you planning your city to appease a developer whose only priority is to extract as much profit as possible from your rare resource? Or you're going to plan your city for future generations, for the kids who need parks to go to, and for the kids who are looking to us to provide ecological benefit that can stave off even some of the environmental crisis in which we're already living and they're going to have to grow up. Developing Mississippi Dunes will worsen that environmental catastrophe. I have recently been reviewing public eBird reports from experienced birders who visited the site. They're documenting endangered and threatened species who only reproduce in large contiguous habitat areas, and they're living on the Gulf course. This isn't just any piece of land, and you don't get many chances like this to leave a legacy for the community. So your vote tonight answers the question, who is your city for? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Harlan Heemstra. I live about 2 blocks from the Mississippi River in the lovely community of St. Paul Park, not far from the boundary with Cottage Grove. First of all, I want to thank you for your public service, your commitment to public engagement, and your commitment to openness and transparency in government, as evidenced by what we're seeing tonight. There are a number of statements that were made by city staff earlier that I would love to respond to because I think that some of them didn't quite tell the full story, but I really want to confine my remarks tonight to something that is more centrally germane to what your role is in this process, the role of the Parks and Recreation and Natural Resources Commission, which according to city ordinance and other documents published on the website, is to protect the environment in order to enhance the quality of life in the community. I think that last phrase is really important. It's not just to protect the environment for its own sake, although there are those of us who might say that there's an inherent value in woods and waters and bugs and beetles and things like that, but it's to enhance the quality of life of the people who live here. And there's a wide acknowledgement that natural areas do that. In multiple surveys over the years conducted by the Metropolitan Council, the thing that is ranked most highly when people talk about the quality of life in the 7-county metro region is its parks, its open space, its woods and waters. That's above shopping, the Mall of America. It's above the Twins and the Vikings and the Guthrie and the Minnesota Orchestra. It's those areas that enhance their quality of life. The purpose as laid out of the Parks and Recreation Commission is to aid and assist the City Council in formulating and following sound conservation and land use management. What we're talking about here tonight, essentially, and amongst its duties is to, and this is important, I believe, ensure environmentally significant areas are preserved for urban development. Now, I would say to you that this master plan goes smack up against that duty that is laid out in the city's documents that you have, because it does not adequately protect what is arguably one of this city's most environmentally significant areas, one of its most environmentally significant areas that is not protected. So, while this new plan makes some nod in that direction, to set aside a mere 33 acres or so, and I'm excluding the additional S&A land because that's not a city park. To set aside a mere 33 acres as a city park is really mere lip service to the concept, honestly. Duty requires, therefore, I believe, that the Parks and Natural Resources Commission reject this master plan as it's laid out because it's inadequate and inconsistent with the Commission's roles and responsibilities, as I just mentioned. But it's also inconsistent with the city's comprehensive plan approved a mere year ago. Chapter 5 of that plan deals with parks and open spaces, and it provides guidance on planning for acquisition, development, and functioning of a signature parks and open space system. Signature, not just any garden variety parks and open space system, but a signature, one that stands out and distinguishes Cottage Grove as a community.
Harlan, I'm going to ask you to kind of summarize and wrap up, please.
Okay, to summarize then, have I gone up to 3 minutes already?
Yep.
The citizens of this community have overwhelmingly, in the feedback you've given them, said they want something different. This plan does not meet your laid out obligations. It's not consistent with the city's own comprehensive plan, and it's not consistent with what is right and with what's good. So I think it's up to you really to reject this plan as it is, to send it back for further work, to take more time, the time that people say this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. It's not just once in a lifetime. It's once in a generation. It's once and forever, because once you destroy these areas, you can't bring them back. Someday, a future resident of this area is not going to be impressed with, Myron Bailey Boulevard or Justin Olson cul-de-sac or avenue or something like that, but they may well stop and say, when they see this large dedicated natural area park on the banks of the Father of Waters, they may say, those people knew what the wise thing to do was. They knew what the good thing to do was, the right thing to do. And they did it.
Thank you, Harlan.
I hope you'll do that.
Hi, my name is Sarah Wers. I'm at 8642 Grosse Pointe Avenue South in Cottage Grove here. I started out I think was it in May that this first came up in front of you guys. And that was my first time ever attending any city meeting or speaking out or being involved at all. And I've attended many meetings since. I've become very involved in this. As a mom, I want to raise my kids to be involved and do these kinds of things and fight for what's right. The open house and online engagement was pretty much unanimous that people wanted more park space and less houses. I don't feel that the city is responding to that, and that's very disappointing. I was there. It was a great presentation. Lots of people there, lots of different things to discuss and talk about. And I don't see that there's been any changes to reflect all of that feedback. And I'm very disappointed in that. I haven't heard anyone in the community speak out at any meeting or anything saying that they want this as is. There's been a lot of kind of pushback saying, well, we have a county park that's gonna be coming in. That's at least 10 to 20 years down the road. I'm not gonna be able to take my kids there. That just isn't gonna happen. Maybe as a grandparent, I'll take my grandkids there, maybe. But even then, that's maybe 10 to 20 years before they start planning it, and then restoration, I mean, that just doesn't seem right. And the county owns 113 acres out of a possible 1,366 that they want for that park. And they're only gonna buy property as people are willing to sell it. So this just doesn't seem realistic, and it doesn't seem fair to say, we don't need all these things or this big park space here because we're gonna have it right across the river, right across the channel. When? Where can I take my kids to enjoy the river now and learn about it now in our town without going somewhere else? I enjoy going to the SNA, but 4-year-old twins in there, nah, not really my favorite idea to do. I take them out a lot of places, but losing them in the thickets of things there, or trying to figure out, okay, how do we get across the railroad tracks if you can't find the tunnel underneath? It doesn't feel good to me. So I'd rather have a place that maybe there is some developed park land, there's a lot of great things in this plan for a park space that can be accessible to all. And that's great. And we can do better. We can make it bigger. We can have more open, natural space to let that go wild. One other thing is my concern about this main road coming in that the public is supposed to use. Does that go under the tracks? And if so, when there was the fire at the clubhouse, the fire trucks all had to go all the way around, right? And delay
Two
getting
main
there?
roads to get there, one under the bridge, one through St. Paul Park.
Right, and if they can't get there under the bridge, if we have an emergency here with the public at a public park, then, that's gonna delay time for people to get there. So maybe if this was looked at differently, there could be a nice public access road that didn't have to go under the bridge and could go through the property in a different way that wouldn't impact a giant neighborhood. So that's where I'm at. I want a place to take my kids while they're young and can foster that love for the river and our neighborhood and our community and keep it in Cottage Grove. I take them out of Cottage Grove to do this stuff. And I don't want to do that if this is such a, fantastic opportunity here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Greetings, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Dr. Dale Gentry. I'm here on behalf of Minnesota Audubon Society. I'm an ornithologist and a conservation biologist and wanted to offer the perspective. We often present development opportunities as dichotomies where we have to choose humans or the environment. And we now know that many of those are false dichotomies, that actually what is good for the environment is good for humans. Let's talk about birds, for example. They are sentinels of environmental health. They offer pest control. They are involved in pollination and seed dispersal. Their habitats are sinks for carbon and filters of water. And of course, they are adored by millions of people around the earth, and I'm sure many people who live in Cottage Grove, influencing their enjoyment of the environment. These relationships where nature serves humans are called ecosystem services. And we now know that our economy and our fundamental well-being is dependent on the healthy environments offering ecosystem services in abundance for free. And it turns out that this environment which we are referring to is full of birds. There are at least 11 species on the DNR list of greatest conservation need who are either rare or whose populations are declining. And if we're interested in looking after those birds, the number one factor that matters is the size of the habitat. Large habitats hold large populations. And large populations are the number one factor that influences whether a population persists from one year to the next. So if you're interested in looking after the well-being of the birds that are in the SNA and the adjacent habitats, then more habitat would be the best opportunity to serve those populations. And so I'm not here to advocate that we scrap the opportunity for development, but that we look at expanding and maximizing the open space, because developments with large patches of healthy habitat are the best vision of the communities that we all want to live in, where we don't have to choose between the well-being of the environment and of humans, but that we can coexist and thrive together. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay, who next?
My name is Sharon O'Boyle, and I grew up in the stone house on that property until I was 8 years old. My grandma O'Boyle owned the Mississippi Dunes land. My family chose to wait until they found a buyer who would be compatible with the environment, with the existing wildlife habitat that is on that acreage. I feel very strongly about preserving the acreage. You have the SNA on one side adjacent to it. You've got the Great Cloud Island Regional Park adjacent on the other side. It's only common sense that you include Mississippi Dunes. So you have one large park, whether it be regional, whether it be state, whether it be county, whether it be city, or a combination of all of the above. You've got federal programs like AmeriCorps and the Conservation Corps that could help out on the property. You've got, you're talking about the Audubon Society. You've got all these organizations that could collaborate and make this happen. The Great Cloud Island Regional Park was my great aunt's land. It used to be a riding stables many, many, many years ago. This land, the last thing you need is a housing development. You've already put in a ton of housing developments up above on the hill, to the other side of the SNA. Cottage Grove has already, you don't want to become another Woodbury. Maybe you do, but the communities around you don't want another Woodbury. We want to be good stewards of the land, of the open space that we have. We need to preserve what open spaces we have. I'm seeing so much agricultural land that is being turned into housing developments in Cottage Grove. We know that climate change is a fact. It's not a made-up thing. And anything that we can do to preserve the open spaces will help mitigate the effects of climate change. And we know that's something that we have to do. A housing development won't mitigate those effects. And a housing development is the worst possible scenario for this land. Washington County, Cottage Grove, all of your plans, what is in writing, say that you want to preserve, that your main focus is the environment. Then make your words, don't just use words, take action and make Mississippi Dunes part of that environmental plan. This is, any housing here is wrong. It's not needed. And there's so much potential with this land. There's just so much potential. Don't let us lose that. I have 3 minutes.
You're over.
Oh, thanks.
I think we got your message. loud and
Okay,
clear.
thanks. I'll keep on speaking. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
Thank you. I'm Bill Schwen. I moved across the street from the stone house at 10,300 Gray Cloud Trail back in 1989. And this property has been my playground, winter and summer, including the paddling around the island and every other place. It's just, and it changed once the golf course moved in. I didn't see as many foxes and other wildlife. And it's been wonderful the last 3 years. Mother Nature has taken this area over again, and it's remarkable how quickly this has gone back to nature and turned into the beautiful treasure that it was when I moved here in 1989. It's and I echo the feelings of many of these people have spoken tonight. And one thing that jumps out at me is this is my first time here. Your duties. Duty number 2: ensure environmental significantly areas are preserved from urban development. I want you to put yourselves in the shoes of somebody 30 and 50 years from now who are looking at Cottage Grove when it's maybe, 100,000 people? And you're looking at from the bird's eye view, where are the green places? Where are the parks here? Over in this little cornfield without a woods around it? Well, look at the river over here. Wow. Wouldn't that have been a nice landmark green space for Cottage Grove, Minnesota? So 30 to 50 years from now, you might be applauded for your efforts to preserve this local treasure, metro treasure, and Minnesota treasure. It's so unique. It's so unique. So that's what I have to say, and I hope you think long-term, like very long-term. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
The only thing I forgot to say was my address, 9300 Great Cloud Trail.
Okay. Oh, one more.
Good evening. My name is Sonia Austin Martinez. I live at 7859 76th Street South. I've only recently heard about this proposed plan, and just as a resident of Cottage Grove, I just want to say that I have been really thinking lately about all the development that has been going on, and I've been wondering why. And when I see this map and I see all of these houses proposed here, I just don't really think we need it. I don't think it's a good idea. And I think that, as other people have been saying tonight, it would be great if we can have this preserved for citizens, for wildlife, for the future. I think we have enough new building going on right now that we wouldn't need to do it here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Okay, we'll move it back to the commission, and I think I will start off. I think the first key fact that's been established is there is no development that's really coming in and planned right now. This is just for the future.
There has not been a formal application, but the landowner and a potential developer have been communicating with the city.
So well, first of all, let me commend everybody for their passion on this subject and coming forward and speaking. We really appreciate that in the commission. This commission really has a difficult task to try to come up with a recommendation. And that's what it is. We make a recommendation to council. They have the final say on anything. What I see as part of our issue as we try to come up with a recommendation tonight, I look at everything that's occurred since our last meeting on September 13th. We certainly have had the input from the citizens, September 24th through the 15th, the online engagement, the open house on October 7th. And we've been given a pretty good summary of what has been said there. But also, I look at the timeline, I see on October 11th, the Planning Commission took a guided walking site tour and did a master plan review. And I guess I would ask, before we make this decision, what was their input? We don't know what their input is. I know there's hot issues that probably are not part of our area in parks, more in planning, but I see them as being really intertwined. There's issues, I don't know how they're feeling about the zoning from R1 to R3. From reading some of the council material and some of the research that's been done there, there's some issues with the metropolitan urban service area as far as whether this land does comply or not. I guess I'd be interested in getting some more information on that. On October 12th, the Commission on Historic Preservation reviewed this master plan. Again, I think before we make a decision, our commission would really like to know and hear what their input was on that review. On November 3rd, the City Council held a workshop to review the master plan, public engagement results, and the environmental awareness workshop, or worksheet, I'm sorry. And again, the commission, I think, would really like to know what was the council's reaction to all this input. We've gotten their summary. We don't know how you as a council, what's your opinion of all this feedback? And I think that's something we'd like to hear before we move on. Just a quick comment, when we get into an issue of this magnitude involving all these different areas, I certainly think that perhaps a workshop between planning, historical, commission, parks, council could have been helpful on this issue, maybe helpful in the future. Also on November 3rd, at the council workshop, there was a review of the environmental awareness worksheet. Now, our commission is supposed to get a verbal update on this, maybe finding out what is this workshop. I would like to know, who prepares the workshop? It sounds like, was it city personnel? Was it, according to the language used in the council packet, a project proposer, which I'm assuming it wasn't since there wasn't a project there. And then it's the city council, who is called the Responsible Governmental Unit, RGU. And they decide, apparently, if an environmental impact statement is needed for this area. And again, I'm interested in how this is done and to find out, are there going to be other agencies involved, like the DNR and Minnesota Pollution Control Agency? Lord knows we all have concerns about what's in the ground over there next door. And that's my main concern of this whole thing, is what is the environmental impact? So those are just the things that have come our way since our last meeting. And I guess I'll have some other comments to make, but I guess the question I now have to the rest of the commission, do you feel that we are prepared to vote on this, or do you want more information, or another meeting, or a workshop? And I'll throw that out to anyone that wishes to speak here.
I'll go first as the newest member of the commission. I certainly would like more time to review the feedback from all of the things you just stated.
So, are we able to get some of those questions answered tonight, or not really?
If I can make one comment. The EAW, after this report was written, the council, it was not ready for public distribution, as my city administrator said, so they have not actually reviewed the EAW at this time.
Okay.
But I know just Councilman Olson can follow up with some of that information from that workshop.
I have a pretty good memory, Mike, but let me know if I forgot something, okay? With respect to EAW, that is the DNR. They do the environmental study. That study will include, to address some of the comments that you heard this evening, it will include any information on whether or not endangered species live on the site, and if so, what sort of habitat that they currently enjoy, what do they need, et cetera. The EAW is like dipping your toe in the water of an environmental study. And maybe not that, maybe it's your foot. But what that will do once we see it, because we haven't seen it yet, is it will then determine whether we need to go to the next step, which means do we get all the way in the pool and do an environmental impact study. The EAW has some metrics that are tied to it that will flip the switch on a environmental impact study should some of those metrics be met. At this stage of the game, we just don't know yet. But the DNR is in the midst of doing that study.
See,
And
to me, that's important to know that it's the DNR and not city staff
That's
doing
correct.
this, because if it was
Yeah,
city
so-
staff and then the city council, it's like they're being judge and jury.
if
So
I could,
I think it's important these people know that it's independent.
That's not quite correct, if I can interrupt. I spent 25 years at the DNR. That's not quite correct. So the city of Cottage Grove is the responsible government unit. That's what the language in the law says. The city of Cottage Grove is responsible.
Excuse me, can you go to the podium, please? Sure.
Sorry. But I do know what I'm talking about here. I spent 25 years at the DNR. This gives me a chance to reclaim my mask too, which I've been really worried about. The city of Cottage Grove is the responsible government unit for doing this. The city of Cottage Grove does the environmental assessment worksheet. Now, you don't do it yourself. Generally, you hire a consultant with some expertise in this. It's not just the DNR who gets involved.
we've
The
done.
DNR is one of the commenting agencies, an important commenting agency when there are things like rare or threatened species, groundwater, things like that. But there's also the Pollution Control Agency, the Department of Health, other surrounding communities get to comment on this. The Metropolitan Council gets to comment on this. Mr. Olson, Councilmember Olson is correct that this kind of takes a look at it, and then part of the purpose of an environmental assessment worksheet is to see what potential impacts there may be, to try to mediate or mitigate or lessen those impacts, and then to determine whether or not this environmental assessment worksheet, which should be thorough, but it's a little less in-depth than environmental impact statement, whether it's sufficient or whether a full-blown EIS is in fact needed. So that's just to correct the record, that's how those things work. Thank you.
Thank you.
which I would have told you if I'd have been allowed to finish. But, yeah, I appreciate the fact that Mr. Heemstra felt compelled to share. So, with regard to who is conducting the EAW, Bolton and Mink, who the city has used for different engineering projects in the past, has specialists who do this work. And so we have contracted with them. We had a wonderful speaker from the DNR at our meeting last week, and if I could turn back time, Mr. Chair, you would have been at the meeting because many of the questions that you asked were answered at that meeting. So one thing I would encourage anyone who has questions to do is to actually go back and watch the meeting from last week. The meeting is available via SWCTC, so you can watch it online, and there's a lot of very good information included in the meeting. Zach gave you an overview tonight, but the information we received was very in-depth. So the next thing that we are waiting for is the report with respect to the EAW that would then tell us whether or not an EIS is something that would be recommended. There are numerous governmental agencies included in that reporting dotted line after the report is generated, including Washington County, including the railroad, including MPCA, DNR, et cetera. So there will be a lot of information that will be shared amongst partner agencies, which includes the City of St. Paul Park, Great Cloud Island Township, et cetera. And we even give a copy to our state senator and our state representatives to ensure that they've got it. And if they have any comment, they can comment, in addition to, of course, the county commissioners will all get a copy. The watershed district will get a copy. And so, Cole, you'll get a copy in your role in the watershed district. But once that information comes our way, we'll know what to do next. At this stage of the game, we're in a holding pattern. I think what Zach's asking for, and I'll certainly ask him to correct me if I'm wrong, is in terms of the process and the way that the process has been laid out thus far, which has resulted in essentially the diagram that you see in front of you, which was created by a consultant that the city has hired to help us with the master planning process. So we've seen several of these documents. There have been many iterations since this process started. This is the latest, but it in no way, shape, or form is a reflection on what the property owner would like to do.
Exactly.
Or his developer, because we haven't seen a plan from them. So we certainly continue to talk to them because it's his property. He owns it. There was a comment made that said earlier, the county will buy property as people are willing to sell it for the Great Cloud Island Park. And that's accurate. You have to have a willing buyer and you have to have a willing seller. This individual is a willing seller based upon some personal objectives that he has, and he has the right to strike an agreement with a willing buyer. Now, that willing buyer could be anybody. If somebody wants to buy it for preservation and he's willing to sell it for that purpose, certainly that's an opportunity that exists. But I'm sure he has a price in mind. I'm sure he's had different people approach him for different things over the course of time that he's owned the property. If I take you back to when it was the golf course, our friend Doc at one point wanted to bring WeFest down there. And in fact, that came before us. I don't know if any of you commissioners were on commissions at that time, but WeFest was looking for a different spot. And so we spent months and months and months studying whether or not WeFest could be held on this piece of property, because that's what the property owner wanted to do. Ultimately, the answer was no, that the property wouldn't be ideal for that sort of use. So again, we're working through a planning document process to determine what sort of use could the property be used for. I hope I've answered all your questions. Mike, did I miss any?
Well, what did planning say when they reviewed the plan? We don't know.
Just like, well, they haven't reviewed this plan yet, but just like
But
you.
they did do a walking tour.
Sure they did,
to
just
review
like you
it.
did. They did a walking
Right.
tour with the same piece of papers you had when you did the walking tour, and it was much more informational. It was an experiential learning process. So it looks different on a piece of paper than it does when you're standing there in the middle of the field. And that's really what the intent was to give them a real-life view of what is potentially going to happen on this site. And that way, when it does come time for them to go through this document or any other planning document, this may not be the final iteration, they have a better sense of, okay, so I can see it on paper and then I can translate that into real life. You know, one of the things that's hard to translate is topography. And we know from knowing that site that the topography starts high and runs down low towards the river. It's hard to tell on a piece of paper that that's actually true unless you're a map maker, you understand, you know, all the different elements that go into making this plan. But when you stand there, you can certainly see it.
No, I agree. I mean, when we took our walking tour, it really made an impression on me. You just can't get a feel looking at a map. But again, my question is, what does planning think? I don't know. I'd like to know, at least speaking for myself, I'm not going to speak for everybody else. I'd like to know what they thought. Yeah, historical awareness. Did they do a summary and tell us what they thought of the plan? And really, you know, you guys just been bombarded here with open houses, and I don't know if that's left an impression on council that they want to change or not. And I think I would like to know before we move ahead.
Yeah, my response to that would be this. This item would not be in front of you this evening had planning said, whoa, we don't like it. You know, the reason for putting people in the position to walk the property is so when it comes time to actually look at these documents, you can say, okay, that makes sense or it doesn't make sense based on, you know, your own perspectives. Had planning come back with, you know, a lot of negative feedback or different suggestions, I suspect the plan would be different and it wouldn't have come before the council last week for some more conversation, and it wouldn't be here in front of you tonight. Now, we do have an advantage this evening that we don't normally have, and that is we have Councilmember Dennis in the audience who happens to be the council liaison to the Planning Commission. If you'd like him to speak, you could certainly ask him. I can't speak for him, but I think he might be able to share some things if you want him to go to the podium and do that.
He's, by all means, but, you know, the point I'm trying to make is there's a lot of people that have their fingers in the pie, and we want to know what they think about it before we make our final decision here to move this plan on.
Can I ask a question?
I believe the council person has the floor right now.
Mayor, yes, I am.
You'll be given an opportunity.
All right, well, thank you for the chance to talk. I came here tonight to respectfully observe, and I'm happy to share perspectives or any thoughts relative to your questions you may have. At this very commission, I think it was the last meeting you guys had or the meeting before, where I did get up to speak and talk a little bit about the perspective of what we have to be careful of as a city. The property owner, who is the person of record of ownership, has specific rights. Now, we have to be careful because what we're trying to balance is the greater good along with ensuring that we have a process that leads us to an outcome that achieves opportunity without causing us as a city to get into trouble. So I'm going to be just very, very clear. I'm vice president of our Economic Development Authority. I'm also chairman of our Convention and Visitor Bureau. So I'm all about Cottage Grove, making it a great place and a fantastic place for us to live and for people to be proud to live here. Now, I work closely with our municipal law firm and Corey Land, who is our city attorney. And I have had numerous conversations with her, not just about this, but other developments as well. One of the things that we have to ensure is that we do not put ourselves into a position of denying opportunities which would violate the rights of a given property owner. Here's what happens when we do something like that. There's a number of negative recourses. First off, we're going to end up in court. And that's going to cost us a lot of money. It's 1,000 hours to go to trial. $300 an hour, you can do the math on that, what that would cost us. We get in front of a judge, and judges view cities in a different way than they do just John Q. Public. They look at us and they say, you know what, we have a municipal law firm, we've got experts on our staff, we have engineering firms and other design houses that we work with. And what ends up happening is if the judge finds that we are in the wrong, we will be severely penalized. This will not just include monetary damages. It will also include the fact that we will lose any further ability to have any hand in the design of that project to its fruition. That's a serious loss to the city and to the taxpayers and to the people that we represent. So here's the thing, and these matters are never easy, and I thank you for being up here. You know the feeling when you have a room full of people that are looking at you and they're not too happy. I think everyone in their own way wants to try to deliver happiness when they can. But there are certain limitations as to what that happiness can be. We are required to follow the law. Now, I know our folks and friends of the Mississippi claim that, well, you've got this latitude to do it, but I'll tell you what, I'm gonna trust our attorney who's looking out for us, who we pay a lot of money to make sure we don't get in trouble. Cottage Grove has garnered a fantastic reputation of being a city that looks out for things. We have 33 dedicated parks in this community. If you take a look at the number of parks based on our population and our size, and you put that onto the scale that city planners use across America, we are actually so far over the top of the chart, we're off the page. That's pretty incredible. Now, that's a major dedication over the course of years and years and years of leadership from both elected officials and our staff teams. So we have been doing things here. Mike, you brought up yourself. I mean, all the different engagements. It's been incredible. I don't know of one other process, whether it be even the community center that we recently had, that's had as much involvement relative to bringing input from the community. So this has been a good faith effort. It's been a sincere effort. And, you know, while I absolutely, and I know the rest of the colleagues and you guys listen to the folks and give people the respect of your ear and your consideration, at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we run the fine line of balance that achieves the greatest and best outcome. And that's what I think we do a really good job of doing. Now, there will be some in the room that don't agree, and there are some in the room here tonight that don't live in Cottage Grove. I'm going to point that out too. But the reality is, if you look at the history and if you look at the efforts, we've got a fine system here in place. And you guys have done your share to help us make that happen too. So, do you have any additional questions?
Yeah, just getting back to the basic, after your site tour and plan review, did the commission like the plan or not like the plan, if you could legally answer?
Yeah, so I did speak with the planning commission chair, and they weren't real impressed with the site because of the fact that there were trains going by when they were out walking, planes coming up over the top. There was no overt opposition to the plan of what the city is doing with the master plan. Again, it's just a plan concept.
Exactly, and we were just asking, you know, if other commissions review that, tell us what your input is. What did you like? What didn't you like?
There was no verbal opposition from the planning chair, and that would be no different than if I reached out to you as chairperson of this board. There was no issue of negativity on it.
Mr. Chair, maybe I can add a little bit too. The plan that's before you in terms of the amenities that are provided between the council workshop and the planning commission, there's been no recommendation to make any modifications there. As you had mentioned earlier, there was some modifications the Parks Commission had recommended. With the city council workshop, we added that one portion to the south and to the west, to buffer the west side of the property. Those are the modifications that have been made. I think one of the, what you're hearing from the public engagement process is more land, more public land, less development.
Right.
That's something that's not, as far as the Parks Commission, that's not so much what you're working on tonight, because the direction from the city council at this point has been this piece of property. Now, Councilman Olson at the last workshop asked the question of, do we need more property? Do we need less property? What property do we need? And I answered in the same way, which I'll answer to the commission. If the commission says we need more property, you have to explain what property you want and what you're gonna do with it. That would be my recommendation. So we've identified, with the acreage we have, working with, the landowner, what we think are the most important pieces to protect at this time. So if there's, so I would start with the commission by looking at the plan that's there, seeing if there's modifications that you think are necessary to the plan that's there. And then if you think there's a need for additional land, point out specifically what those pieces of land are and what they would be used for.
I guess what I was asking is, from council, based upon all this input you got, are you giving us any other direction than what's here? Because we haven't heard that from you yet.
Well, you're an advisory commission to the council. So we look to you as objective residents in the community to tell us your thoughts. And we take that input very seriously, as we do from all of the other advisory commissions. That's why they exist. Again, we had a meeting last Wednesday that was extremely in-depth. There was an awful lot of information, far more than you saw here tonight, that was presented to us. And the council as a body spoke, which is how we act. We act as a body, and said, at this stage of the game, we're comfortable with the planning process. We think that what we've got in front of us, as far as a plan, without knowing what the property owner or the developer may want to do, has been thoroughly researched. It's been well put together. It makes sense. Many of the questions we've asked over the last number of months have been, answered effectively. Hence, it's here in front of you tonight. That being said, as I spoke about earlier, that environmental study is going to be the next step, and that's going to have a significant impact on what may or may not happen next. But as far as the council is concerned, as a body, it wouldn't be here in front of you tonight had we not said, okay, we think, at least the process up to this point has been done correctly.
So can we make a motion tonight, or like if I wanted to make a motion to table this until we see these reports and get these EAWs, whatever, is that,
within your
can
purview.
or it says like, we're needing to make a final recommendation to city council on Mississippi Dunes Park Master Plan, like, can we make them, decide, we're just gonna table it and not make that recommendation tonight?
As a body, you can do whatever you'd like. You can make a motion to table it. You could make a motion to approve it. You could make a motion to deny it. I know that the chair spoke about the potential for a workshop with other commission members. You could certainly suggest that as part of your motion. That is all up to you.
I'm in need of some clarification, because this is a very different process than we normally do. Sorry. Usually, when we are drafting plans for parks, we're told how much land we have because the developer already has an agreement. The zoning is clear, and none of these other things are so uncertain. Our chair has spoken about a lack of information from some of the things that have happened just during this engagement process, but normally that's not needed because we're just told how much land we have and what recommendations to make about it. And it's a little stressful, and it seems kind of inappropriate to ask us to make such an important decision about something that's important to so many people when we don't have the amount of information that we usually have. So I I hear that other people are wanting more information. I would suggest that we table it until we have a firm commitment from a developer so that we can make the most informed decision about how to move forward with the parkland that we are left with.
Other comments?
Can we formally add on to that motion to establish a workshop for the commission as well?
You can. The person
Adam,
who made the
care to weigh
motion would
in?
need to amend their motion.
No, I agree with my other commissioners that, we don't have a lot of information, a lot of extra information that you don't have. And I guess one thing to remember is we all volunteered to be on this commission because we like parks and open space. We're not developers and we're not in, you give us 200 acres, we'll plant a really nice park for you, but that's not our decision, so.
I'm kind of in the same boat. Frankly, I know this area. I grew up playing as a child down here and even fishing in this area, and I love the area. Based on what we're looking at, the park area I like, but obviously if I'd like a heck of a lot more parkland, but I don't think that's beyond our scope. I guess what we're looking at right now is just trying to determine what other information we have to help make the best decision for the city and the people of the city. So at this point in time, I'd like to see this tabled.
I guess I don't think we need to table it until development is planned. I think we can give the city, here's the master plan if somebody does want to come in. So I don't think we have to wait that long. But based upon all the stuff that's flowed in, like I said, since our last meeting, that we really haven't had a chance to sit down and discuss, I would make a motion that we table this until our next meeting and set up a brief workshop, maybe an hour before. So that's the motion I'm throwing out. Any discussion to the motion? There's no discussion. Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That's the motion. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, also remember things. Maybe you can help me with something. I heard you discuss the legal piece before. I heard that. My question is who decides on the zoning of that property? Who does that?
Who ultimately decides is going to be the city council.
Right.
And the zoning, no,
second.
hold on, let me finish my answer. The zoning is determined and guided by our comprehensive plan. That's the plan. Now, I like the smile, but you got to understand, that's the plan that has been signed off on by everybody. All of our commissions, we actually had a citizen advisory group that came and worked on that to begin with. All of our commissions, this went out to adjoining cities. The county signed off on it, the Met Council signed off on it, and finally, the city council gave the final approval. So that's the path. So the determination for how the land has been designated all comes down to that comprehensive plan.
And we also know that right now, because I was at another meeting where we talked about how it was zoned, and it's not zoned for that.
It's zoned currently as transitional, which when you think about transitional, think about that, let's just call it a plan with options.
I know, but do you understand how that is not fair to the community or the residents to have a plan with options?
Well, I would generally think people like more options than less, but that's just me. But,
Not when you're talking about a property like that.
well, again, I mean, we've got almost 40,000 people here in the community, and I'm sure there's different people with different ideas, and that's not for me to debate that, but I appreciate your thoughts, and I know right now, as we currently sit, this is just a plan, okay, to reiterate that. But what I like to do is I like to make sure that someone is looking out for the taxpayer of the community, which means that we don't drive the bus off the road by doing the wrong thing that gets us into trouble. And I hope people have respect for that.
I do, however, I don't think it is zoned right now to tell any developer that they can come in and do something like that.
Doesn't transitional mean that it could remain what it was, or it could change? So there's almost anything could happen.
So let me say this from a legal standpoint. Once an application, I work with the attorney all the time. And I know what I'm talking about here, folks. So, and we're gonna cut this off here because with all due respect, this is their commission. We can have these discussions at the city council if some of that needs to come up, or we can talk privately. But the thing is this, once an actual application is made, we cannot go back at that point and change the rules so that person could not do what they seek to do with their land.
But the application has not
It's not been made, and we're not making any final determination here. Right now, this is open. There's nothing been decided.
right, but what I hear you saying is, when it comes in, you're gonna agree to that.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, what we're going to do, well, it is transitional, and that's how it's currently set. Okay?
I'm sorry.
Well, I'm sorry too, but we all
I
have
think
to
I
play
will
by the
just
rules, so.
interject here and
Yeah.
point out that the next planning commission meeting is November 22nd.
Thank you.
Which would discuss zoning issues.
That is correct.
When is the next parks meeting?
Next,
December 1st, 2nd,
No meeting in December?
December,
oh yeah, no meeting in
in
December.
December?
I thought it was January.
Yeah, we have-
First Monday in December.
First Monday in December.
I know. Can I ask one question? I know we already have moved on, Mike, but I do have one question.
Okay.
So the landowner has this land. He has not sold the land to anyone.
That's correct.
This is all facetious at this point, hypothetical.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Just clarifying.
All right, with that, I am calling a 5-minute recess. Order, the meeting is going to continue at 8:39 hours. Our next item is action item B, park naming application, Crockett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. The commission has been talking about this for several meetings, so I'm not going to go into great detail on the background of the renaming application. With the commission's recommendation, the staff has put some options together what Crockett Fields at Hamlet Park might look like. This will be the commission's second time reviewing the application request. So at this point, the commission has the option to make the final recommendation to city council, or they can deny it or request to table it and modify it in some other way. So looking for some direction from the commission on the naming request for Crockett Fields at Hamlet Park.
Any discussion?
I just have a short comment. I read the history of the request, and I think it's a nice homage to the person that it's in honor of.
Thank you. I suggest, we handle this as a two-part process. I'd like to make a motion that we name the new South Fields, William Crockett Fields at Hamlet Park. And after that motion, just suggest to staff that they contact or meet with the local VFW, American Legion, any other veterans group for input as to what signage should go on there, and maybe to discuss possible funding options. I did have one question when it comes to paying for signage there, that we have that park matching fund where we help match funds from an athletic association.
Right.
Would that be appropriate here for signage?
Certainly could be, yes.
Okay. So getting back to my original motion, that we name the new South Fields, William Crockett Fields at Hamlet Park. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next, we have item C, park naming application, Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Park naming request also came in for renaming Hamlet Park as a whole. The applicants are actually here tonight, so if you'd like to hear from them, they can maybe tell you more. But I did include the complete application submission and also included the park naming policy, so you understand the process. I think most of the commissioners are fairly familiar with that, but some of the new commissioners that, the first time we receive these applications, the commission simply just reviews it, and you can provide recommendation to staff to gather more information. You can also deny the request. But we do ask that the commission reviews it at least 2 times because renaming a park is a significant task, and we want to make sure that there's due diligence in that process. So at this point, looking just for review of the naming request and then any direction for staff to proceed before the next meeting.
Okay, we have somebody who wishes to speak. Please step forward, state your name and your address, please.
My name is Jack Lavold. I live at, I just moved, 7548 Hinton Park Avenue South. I've lived in Cottage Grove since November 1st of 1959. I had an opportunity on the Monday after the 4th of July to come home from work, and standing in a backyard was Conway Olson. And I went over and said hello, and he said, "What can I get involved in this town? I want to be part of it." And he has done, in my estimation, and I guess most people would say it can't be a humble estimation because I'm far from that, that he and a number of people, or he was a very positive person in the growth of this city. And I got a call one day from Joe Fogarty, a former councilman and a former county commissioner. And he's been active politically since about the same time I started when I was 20 years old. But anyway, Conway, the reason he was brought forward, and Joe started it. Joe happens to be in Palm Springs right now for the rest of the year, through the winter, and he's left. Conway Olson was the one that really got the sewer system in the Cottage Grove. Conway Olson was the one that defeated a law that came down from an old planning commission that preceded the Met Council to name Woodbury and Cottage Grove as one city. And he personally defeated that. And he defeated it because he had fully researched it. There's a glacial ridge that runs along the south side of Woodbury, and we didn't want to pay for the Woodbury people to pump their sewage over the top of the ridge down to the Cottage Grove sewage plant. Cottage Grove had a sewage plant Woodbury did not have one at the time. Woodbury didn't have any people at the time because Woodbury didn't have any housing at the time. And Warren Thompson came out here and built 1,142 houses in 3 years, and they're all on the Norris Square side of the highway. There was 1,100, and they're all identical. We had a choice. Do you want a 30, 36, a 40, a 44, or a 48 footer? But he defeated that. He asked me to join him, and he and I and Representative Albertson ran through the Minnesota State Legislature a special law to name Cottage Grove as a city, and Conway Olson did that. That's virtually all done by his idea and his hard work. But he's done a lot of other things that were monumental. And if you talk to the public service people, he has personally donated all of the defibrillators as they go through all of their evolutions to where they are today. And one of the last things he did was to check with Cottage Grove, did they need anything more? And they said, no, St. Paul Park and Newport are not current. And he took care of them for all the defibrillators they needed. But he did that as personal. And I get, there are a lot of other things that he was involved in. He was the steward of the S&A in Cottage Grove for 25 years. Well, obviously all of his buddies were the stewards, all assistant stewards, and we all did cleaned up that. I've cleaned up and picked wild seed in that S&A area. We did that for 25 years, harvested wild seed. I think you have to, I want to qualify my speech a little bit tonight in that, as I wrote for his eulogy, which I was unable to present, that Conway Olson was my friend.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I chime in for a moment, please?
Certainly.
Conway and Katie Olson are weaved into the fabric of this community very tightly. They've done so many good things. Jack mentioned just the tip of the iceberg. Contributions to public safety, financial contributions of equipment. When there was something important to get done, Conway and Katie were the ones to roll up their sleeves and say, okay, we'll step in. Seems like Conway always had room on his plate for one more project, even though his plate was awful full. And he was a long-term, highly respected city council member here. I'll tell you that my first campaign in 2008, I had the opportunity to spend some time with Conway and Katie asking for some advice. And the advice he gave was, really, really good advice. And one of the things that he often talked about was, if you really want to make people unhappy, don't plow the roads. Don't have parks. Don't have a police department or a responsive fire department. He was all about core governmental services and how critical that was to a really strong community. And Conway was a man, and Katie, as his wife, their family, they put their money where their mouth is. They have donated, many, many thousands of dollars in equipment and financial donations over the course of their lifetime, and innumerable hours of volunteer time. So I just wanted to piggyback on what Jack said. He was a magnificent human being.
Thank you for that. Any comments?
Other than he spelled his name wrong, because I'm an EN, he's an ON, just FYI.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but Mr. Levold and Mr. Fogarty asked me my name's David Olson, and I'm one of Conway's sons. I live at 8627 Jorgensen Avenue South, so just that way, about a stone's throw. And they asked me to represent our family, so I've talked to everyone in our family, and I would just tell you that we loved being here in Cottage Grove. We loved growing up here. Hamlet Park is a pretty special place, actually, for both mother and dad. Dad for all the recreation he did there, mother because she just pushed me out the front door and said, go there, don't come back till dinner, and I did that most days. So I can just tell you on behalf of our family, we would be honored. And we know there's all kinds of other stuff for you all to decide, so we hope this is a happy thing, and we would, anything you wanted to talk to us about, I'd be happy to do more research and things like that. But I just know that both of them love this town, and they really appreciated having a place like this to raise their family, and I'm glad I was here too, so thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, what is it about Hamlet Park specifically? Was the Olson family, did they live near there, spend a lot of time there? Are there other areas of the city that would be similarly meaningful?
Well, yes, anything would be meaningful, but it is special. I mean, we lived on, I think of it as Butternut Park because the street, we lived on Ash, which is now Hamlet, and Butternut was the next one up, and that little hill that goes down into Hamlet Park was called Butternut, and I think that's how it got its name, and probably why it got named Hamlet when the street names changed. But yeah, I mean, it's special to me. I still hike over there because I was there, played back there the whole time I was a kid growing up, because it was always an open field, and there's probably a lot more dangerous things and stuff back then, I guess, but I'm not sure. So I don't know if that helps, but yeah, and it's what, I mean, it wasn't our, Jack and, or Mr. Levold, Mr. Fogarty came to us, and it was, so this is what they asked us about, and of course we said we'd be honored.
Thank you.
That park was the first park in Cottage Grove, outside of the 2 vacant lots from Panorama City, which were in bankruptcy, and it's now a little teeny park. Plus, you don't even probably know where Panorama City is, but it's on going down Belden Boulevard to the end of the deep end of the housing, and you turn left, that's the end of Panorama City. There was 9 houses.
Right behind where I grew up, so.
Okay.
Well.
But that was a park. All of our kids played there. Conway Olson's lot and my lot sat corner to corner. His kids and my kids and all the other kids just went across the pond where there was a land bridge, and they played down in the area where they weren't supposed to be. But then they were also up in the park. And it was the only organized park for about 4 years. It was heavily used, and it still is. A lot of people still walk that regularly. And Conway did. He walked that park after he retired. That was his primary loop. to do a figure eight on Butternut, or on Hamlet Park.
Thank you. I guess I have a couple comments. I'm speaking more this time in my previous 4.5 years together, but here it goes. I think what came out of the previous issue, the William Crockett Park naming request, was that we as a commission were generally opposed to renaming an established park. Hamlet Park's been identified with that name for, you could tell me, almost 70 years.
Ever since the name changing of
Right.
street name changing.
Quite some time. So whether you like the name or not, just because it was named after a street, getting back to what Justin was saying, it's really become part of the fabric of this community. And we are really reluctant to remove that name from the community. There's grandfathers and fathers and sons who have all played baseball and played on that park, and girls too. Sorry about that. So, much like the Crockett request, which involved, a man who lost his life serving his country, I would vote to deny the request to name the entire park Olson Park. And that should in no way diminish the outstanding contributions that Conway and his family, have made to this city. And also, like the Crockett application, I would like to open, I would be open to other recognition of Mr. Olson in other ways. Certain examples, maybe we have a display here of people who have made such a difference in the early days of Cottage Grove, rotate their display through, getting back to the park like we did with Mr. Crockett, perhaps name a trail after him or the pond, and have some type of plaque that would, include some signage on what a great contribution Mr. Olson made. Would you be open to that?
We're open to anything.
All right.
We are well aware of the fact that the city has a policy in place from the years of involvement of not naming ponds or streets for people. And there are a couple of situations right now, and my good friend Pete Thompson, when he sold the property, I don't know what he did, but that area north of 70th, it's north of 70th, over on the West Draw.
Yeah, he had the advantage of a brand-new park, though.
Yeah, and he was also a super.
Yes, I agree.
He was a powerhouse in this house, in this town, as was his father before him. And Pete's been dead now, 30 years?
Yes.
And he's got Peter Thompson Park. Every right deserves it, was his property, and I'm sure he made some financial acquisition, something went along with it for them to do that name. And I don't know what it was, and they don't have to know. But we brought this up as we thought that when we sat and chatted with it, and Katie Stevens' dad, Mike, who was the Sabin Bridge was named for, was a 16-year legislator member, and we have lunch together about once a year. And he thought it was a great idea, so.
I understand how the idea.
So I just said, I'll go, but I said, we've got a problem. And they said, you're living there, you take care of it. So we said, we know the problem, we would like to produce a name.
Okay,
And,
well,
and I understand where you come
yeah.
from, because frankly, from my years on the County Parks Commission, and I did about 15 years there, I would have made the same decision you're making tonight.
All right, with that, I'm going to open it up to other members for input.
I really, you've got food for thought. When everybody gets back from the south in April, we'll start over again and come up with an idea for you. And I like your idea of a pond name, more so a trail name. That figure 8 trail down there, he would enjoy having his family's name on that.
So
I will be back with that idea.
Okay. Well, anyway,
I agree. I think a part of the park rather than the whole park itself. I mean, just thinking of myself and me growing up here and my kids now, like, it's hard to, like, think of it anything other than Hamlet Park. Like, it's just what it has been. But naming it the trail or something to commemorate him, I think is a great idea.
I agree with your concept. I had the same problem when they changed it from Butternut Park to Hamlet Park.
Any other comments
I didn't
from the
like
commission?
Hale Park.
So Zach,
For-
do we?
For
I'm sorry.
clarification, is this the first or second proposal of the
This
name
is
change?
the first.
Okay, thank you.
And also for clarification, do we have to deny the request and then for the full park name and then try to?
Yes, if someone wants to make a motion, you
Yes.
can make a motion to deny the request, and then I can bring it back to the applicants and talk about resubmitting.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move for reconsideration, and we will know what that means. And make it-
Are you withdrawing the request, sir?
Yeah, somehow do it more than deny.
He just doesn't want to be denied.
So we don't have to vote on the,
You don't want to know about this.
So-
Attorney friend about this.
This reminds me of the meetings in the old city hall, oh my word. Yeah.
so with the request's been withdrawn, so we don't have to vote on it. And we'll just direct staff to meet with you and come back with some ideas for us.
Official process as we did this time, and we'll bring it back up and start with Zach and
Sounds,
get it in the proper form to be presented to a committee.
sounds good. So now we're going to move on to action item D, which is really the big controversial item that I'm sure we were facing all night.
Yes.
Tension, so Zach.
It's been saving up for this hot item. So, to start, the Highland Park Playground, I don't have a proposal for that. Like, I thought I would have one today or Friday, but that did not come in time. So, the packet says I would have a verbal presentation of that, but I do not. So we're not gonna deal with Highlands Park today. Hidden Valley Meadowgrass Playground equipment is beyond its life expectancy. We did go out and inspect it like we always do to see if anything is salvageable, if the entire unit is salvageable or pieces are salvageable, but it really just, both those units do need to be replaced. It's about a 50-50 chance whether we can retain some of the equipment for use, but in this situation, we're recommending complete replacement of both. I did get four vendors to submit proposals, so those four options are in your packet. I hope you've had time to review those, and I'm looking for a recommendation on both Hidden Valley and Meadowgrass Parks for the preferred playground. As the commissioners that have been here before, as you're aware, but just for new commissioners, there are options to modify these. I do leave a little bit of a budget in case the commission says, we'd like to change out part, a slide for a climber or things like that. So there is a little bit of room for there. So if you see a piece from one playground that you think would really be cool, you like concept A, but you see a piece in concept B that you think would be, would make a big difference. Those are things that we can consider. I can't make promises on those because we have to work with the vendors and see how those fit with their playground designs and safety surfacings and borders and things like that. But just giving the commission the option that, or letting the commission know that that is an option. So looking for recommendations on the playground options before you.
Well, should we just, do you want to just call it an option or do a hand vote on who likes which one the best and we'll go from there?
I would say let's start with Hidden Valley Park and see if there's a motion to recommend one playground.
I
option
motion
over the-
to recommend option 4.
Oh, you went 4?
4.
I want, well,
I love it.
I
Look
want
at all the
one,
climbing
so-
things.
I was gonna say 2, but add the little hut sales thing from 4.
I love number 4. Look at all the
Well,
climbing
let's just-
things.
before we get into that,
I'm sorry, which one are we looking at right now?
Hidden Valley.
Okay, I said option 2 for accessibility reasons.
I picked option 1.
I picked one, okay. I just want a quick count. You got, what, 2?
I said 2.
I said 2, but my main, if you're talking about just specific pieces of equipment, I like the accessibility of the, wheelchair accessibility and disability access. So I'd be willing to do any design with that in mind.
Okay, so we could include, so we got 2 2s, 2 1s, what are you guys?
I like option 4, but with the port in place.
With what?
So like the port in place surface.
These would not include pour-in-place surface.
What about number 2?
None of pour-in-place surfaces would consume the budget itself.
What's number 2? What's the surface?
None of these all have engineered wood fiber, but they are
Oh.
engineered wood fiber is handicap
So that can be
accessible.
for number 4 too?
Correct, they're all engineered wood fiber, yep.
Boy, I thought this was going to be a quick one, but
So
not.
looks so different.
So I'm hearing I see, did I hear anything for option 3?
Well, we've got 2 2s initially, 2 1s, a 4, and we're waiting on Susie here to totally muddle up the waters. It's getting late. We're
Punch drunk.
Well, I'm more excited about Meadowgrass, but 4.
I know, yeah, Meadowgrass is. 4, she said 4 loud and clear.
So we have 3 for 4, right?
I think you have 2.
I think you have 2, but we'll take 3.
Yeah.
2 for 4.
No, I think we basically just eliminated 3 is all we did
Yeah.
in this vote.
I think the chair counts as 2 votes.
Well, because of the handicap accessible issue, I'll go with 2.
Yeah, but they all can be handicap accessible.
The
You'd have to
one
convert
about
the
1, I'm a
swings.
little worried about how tall that, I mean, I'm a mom, so it gets really tall. And I'm worried about children falling. Maybe
But-
that's too sentimental. What if we did a 4 design with the handicap accessible swing and something accommodating the structure?
You could add a handicap accessible swing to option 4.
Deal.
Yeah.
Okay, somebody make a motion?
Motion.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so I will motion for option 4 with the handicap accessible swing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Dan.
Oh, controversy. Okay. Then we have the
Meadowgrass.
Meadowgrass.
So Meadowgrass Park is the one by the great big water tower.
Yes.
And I hope that we would have the funding, or maybe we could use some of our, like, whatever park fund to help do an infographic sign to help explain how water towers work. Because every time we go to that park, my kids want to know what is happening inside that giant tower. And I don't know.
We can do that.
And I think that would be really cool and an excellent educational opportunity. It's got a really good view of Westra Park. It's just a nice overlook there. So if whichever, playground equipment had some sort of like telescope or periscope to encourage kids to look around, I think that would be awesome. And also, I like number 1 because it has that tower structure. Because climbing is good. And it's also with a manufacturer that we haven't used as frequently. So it'd be nice to have a little bit more diversity in the structures that we've chosen.
Okay, once again, just a quick straw vote. Who's for 1? 2? 3?
I like 3. Oops.
I like 3 as well.
I like 3
4.
with Susie's ideas.
So we had 3 for 1. If one
I think
wants
the
to make a
majority
motion.
was for number 1, so what are the option 3? What's in option 3 that would help sell option 1, I guess? Maybe that's the way to go.
Option 1 was my second choice.
So are there components in option 3 that would help you?
No, I like them both.
Option 3 had the really interesting floating linear.
Yeah, like the lily pad looking things.
Yeah.
We have that at Kingston.
We also have wheelchair accessibility at Kingston, just saying.
These parks aren't really close to each other.
Yeah.
So,
We can look at adding that lily pad type.
Are you wanting to use the same vendor on both projects?
No, but that's something that both vendors carry. There's some things that both vendors carry and some things that don't. Most things are compatible across vendors.
Is there like some type of,
You're looking for something balancing, right?
no, I'm wondering it for like the city's perspective, is there some type of, like, do they, if we get both projects, we'll give you X, Y, Z?
Oh.
Do you get a discount, like type thing if you use the same for both projects?
No, not on this project.
so did you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to do number 1 and add a balancing feature.
And a telescope.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Forget the infographic, that was a really good idea.
The what?
The infographic.
Oh, I got that one down. That's number
That's a
1.
brilliant idea.
Okay,
So it was balancing feature, telescope, and the interpretive signage on the water tower ops, correct? Did I miss anything?
so that did turn out to be rather controversial.
Why not?
Who knew? Okay, presentation of information,
Nothing tonight.
action updates.
Just,
2000, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Just
Yeah,
one.
2021 park improvements. Most projects are coming to a close. Hamlet Park South, the roof went on last Friday. So we'll start buttoning up on the inside of that building on the south side of the park. The north soccer field is growing grass, so that's nice to see. The Irrigation Athletic Association donated a scoreboard and some bleachers for their football soccer field, so you'll start to see that go up this winter. Highlands Park basketball court reconstruction, we ran out of time to actually resurface that, so that'll get resurfaced next spring. And Oakwood Park, you've seen the playground is in, people are playing on that already.
So nice.
Yeah, a lot of positive comments. The excavation of the building has started. We're hoping to get footings in this week so that we can do a winter construction on that project. If not, it may get delayed until spring, but we're really pushing hard for a winter construction, which will have restrooms and a large shelter. Harside Park playground equipment is in. They still need to put the safety surfacing and the border up. Arbor Meadows Park improvements are done with the addition of the picnic shelter and trails. That's all the updates I have for today. If you have questions on anything that you're seeing or hearing, let me know.
I've heard lots of great feedback on all the new playgrounds,
Good.
especially in the moms group.
Oh, Strawberry Fields is open and being
Yep.
played on it. Yeah. Also included a article from the National Recreation Park Association. It's called Park Pulse. Talks about reducing stress in parks and recreation and how that activity can benefit people. So included that as well. I don't have any community center updates other than obviously the community center failed in the referendum. So.
Okay, donation acknowledgements,
None tonight.
staff reports and educational material.
Staff reports are, I guess I got ahead of myself with the educational materials, but staff reports are in your packet. So River Oaks Recreation Services, Ice Arena, and Parks Maintenance. So if you have questions on those, we're here, we stand to answer those.
Commission comments? Anyone? Council comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As always, if you have any questions for me, it's one of the reasons I'm here. I'd be happy to answer anything I can, but before I take your questions, I want to just bring you in the loop on a couple of things. First of which is the city had an election last week. I'm not sure if you're aware of that or not. But we did have our November election. It wasn't what we like to call an off-year election. What that means is you don't have a president, you don't have a governor, you're not in an even year, so voter turnout tends to be a little light in those elections. We had about 8,300 voters that went to the polls in the city of Cottage Grove out of 25,000 registered voters. So it was a little bit light, but as Zach mentioned, the community center referendum was on the ballot and it failed by 222 votes. Additionally, the school board was on the ballot and 3 of the incumbents, Katie Schwartz, Sharon Van Leer, and Patty Driscoll, were reelected. And then Eric Tesmer, who's a new candidate, was also elected. And then the school board had 2 referendum questions on the ballot. One was per pupil funding, and that was question 1. It did pass. The second question dealt with technology and increasing the budget for technology for the schools so that the school district could work with the students on upgrading things like iPads, et cetera. And that question did not pass. It was very close, but it did not pass. Additionally, as far as actions that we took as a city, we accepted the resignation of one of our council members. Councilmember Lorraine Mills and her fiance bought a home in Burnsville. And so as a result, she was no longer able to serve on the city council, and she regretfully tendered her resignation. We do have 10 applicants seeking appointment to that seat. Those applicants will be interviewed by the city council this coming Wednesday night, and there will be a final applicant chosen at that point. The application process results in an appointment that lasts 1 year. And then the next election, which will be next November, 2022, that individual, should they choose to run for the remaining 2 years of the term, would need to run for election on the ballot in 2022. We also hired a new communications manager for the city of Cottage Grove. Mike, I don't know if you know Jen Longacre. She was a dispatcher for a while, and she currently is a PIO for the State Patrol. She handles a lot of different things in the Department of Public Safety at the state level, and she is a former Cottage Grove resident, grew up in the community, Park High School grad, so has her PhD just like Sam and I and Zach and all these other folks. But she did accept the position, so she will be starting December 9th. She's replacing Scott Soroka. Scott Soroka was an outstanding communications manager, but he took a position in the private sector. So Jen will be replacing Scott and hopefully starting on the 9th of December as planned. We really look forward to having her on the team. She did a really nice job with the application and interview process. We had 2 really nice finalists, really good finalists, but Jen definitely stood out. So we're very excited for her to join us. Any questions that you have, I'm willing to answer. Any topic, nothing's off the table, so feel free.
Well, with no questions, I guess we'll move on to adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.